Society often tells us that people who prefer to spend time alone are just shy, socially awkward, or even depressed. But what if I told you their brains are physically built differently? A 2012 study published in the Journal of Neuroscience found that those who crave solitude actually possess thicker grey matter in the prefrontal cortex, the brain area linked to abstract thought and decision-making. Welcome. I am Dr. Arthur Sterling. For decades, the medical and social world treated the desire to be alone as a problem that needed fixing. Today, we are exploring the fascinating psychology behind why some individuals truly prefer their own company. Is this quiet isolation actually a secret psychological superpower, or is there a hidden cost? The truth might completely change how you view your quietest friends. Let us dive in. Part 1. The brain chemistry of solitude. Think of your brain as a smartphone battery. For some people, stepping into a crowded, incredibly noisy room is like plugging their phone straight into a fast charger. But for others, that exact same room drains their battery down to 1% in record time. Why does this happen? The scientific answer comes down to a powerful neurotransmitter called dopamine. Dopamine is famously known for the ultimate reward chemical. It delivers a massive rush of pleasure whenever you socialize, take risks, or experience novelty. But here is the fundamental difference. People who genuinely prefer solitude naturally possess a significantly lower biological threshold for dopamine sensitivity compared to extroverted individuals. Because their brains are already highly reactive to it, the dynamic shifts. While a social person requires a constant dose of dopamine just to feel a normal baseline buzz, a quiet person reaches their maximum capacity incredibly fast. When thrown into a chaotic social environment, they are not being shy or awkward. They are experiencing rapid biological overstimulation. So, we must ask the logical question. If these individuals are not constantly chasing that familiar dopamine high, what exactly is fueling their complex brain? The hidden secret lies in a completely different, much quieter neurotransmitter and to science as acetylcholine. While dopamine is entirely wired for seeking thrilling external rewards, acetylcholine is all about internal cognitive processing. It is the core biological chemical that directly powers deep analytical thinking, intense mental focus, long-term memory retention, and states of profound physical calm. The acetylcholine pathway inside the human brain is physically much longer, traveling a highly deliberate and complex route straight through the nervous system. Because of this uniquely longer pathway, it naturally requires significantly more time and vastly less external distraction to fully activate. When a person who loves being alone sits quietly reading a book, their brain is taking a literal chemical bath in pure acetylcholine. This is precisely why everyday solitude never feels isolating or empty to them. It feels profoundly and deeply energizing. Society often aggressively pushes the loud narrative that we should all be highly outgoing and relentlessly social. But forcing a natural solitude seeker to act like an exhausted social butterfly is exactly like trying to run a heavy-duty diesel engine on premium unleaded gasoline. The biological fuel source is fundamentally incompatible. Their specific biological engine is perfectly designed to run smoothly and efficiently on the slow, deliberate burn of acetylcholine, safely away from the exhausting dopamine spike of modern social life. Understanding this neurochemistry completely reframes what it means to be a loner. It is a strict biological necessity to keep a highly sensitive brain functioning exactly as nature intended. Part 2. Solitude versus loneliness. Being completely isolated from society can literally stop your heart. But for some individuals, a quiet, solitary weekend is the absolute only thing keeping them fundamentally sane. How can being alone be a deadly medical condition for one person, yet a vital psychological cure for another? The answer lies in a single, incredibly powerful psychological concept: choice. We as a society often use the words loneliness and solitude as if they mean the exact same thing. In reality, your physical body and your complex brain react to them as complete and total opposites. Let us examine the darker side first. Loneliness is absolutely not about how many people are physically standing in the room with you, You can be standing in the middle of a crowded concert and feel entirely lonely. Loneliness is the deep, agonizing psychological distress of feeling profoundly disconnected from others against your will. When you are forced into this type of unwanted isolation, your brain registers it as an acute, immediate physical threat. From an evolutionary standpoint, being separated from the ancient human tribe meant certain death. So, your modern brain still panics. It triggers a relentless, exhausting fight or flight response, aggressively flooding your nervous system with stress hormones like cortisol. A 2022 study conducted by the American Heart Association found a truly terrifying medical statistic regarding this state. Chronic loneliness, which is that unwanted, forced isolation, increases a person's risk of heart attacks and strokes by a staggering 30%. It acts like a slow, invisible poison to your cardiovascular system. Unwanted isolation is biologically and medically as dangerous to your long-term physical health as smoking 15 cigarettes a day or carrying severe excess body weight. So, if the clinical medical data paints such a grim, devastating picture of physical isolation, why on earth do some individuals actively run toward it with open arms? This brings us directly to the profound, life-altering difference between forced loneliness and chosen solitude. When you actively and deliberately choose to step away from the loud crowd, the entire biological narrative inside your skull flips completely upside down. Instead of feeling threatened or abandoned, your brain experiences a profound sense of absolute safety, peace, and ultimate control. A groundbreaking 2023 study from the University of Reading, formerly published in Scientific Reports, proved this exact biological and psychological phenomenon. The researchers discovered that freely chosen everyday solitude actively and significantly reduces daily stress levels. But more importantly, it powerfully satisfies the fundamental human psychological need for autonomy. Autonomy is the deeply rooted desire to be the sole author of your own actions. When you are surrounded by other people, even people you genuinely love, your brain is constantly dedicating background energy to processing their emotions, reading their body language, and meeting their subtle social expectations. You are always, on some microscopic level, performing. But when you are the one holding the remote control to your social life, hitting the pause button removes all of that invisible psychological weight. You are no longer performing. Hitting that pause button does not trigger biological panic. It triggers deep psychological repair. Psychologist Dr. Tuvai Nguyen rigorously observed this repair process in action, identifying what she perfectly titled the deactivation effect. Her clinical research showed that just 15 short minutes of sitting completely alone, without a smartphone or external distractions, significantly dials down high arousal emotions. It rapidly decreases intense, buzzing anxiety and even overwhelming excitement, bringing the nervous system back to a smooth, flat, calm baseline. Think of this 15-minute deactivation effect as a mandatory, highly efficient cooling system for a heavily utilized biological engine. During those quiet minutes, the brain clears out the chaotic emotional clutter of the day. The solitude seeker is not nervously hiding from the outside world. They are actively recalibrating their internal emotional thermostat so they can actually function effectively. Why? Thin it. But what exactly happens when you forcibly take that vital quiet time away from them? Modern society frequently forces natural loners into highly stimulating social environments, blindly assuming it is for their own good. We drag them to exceptionally loud networking parties, push them into chaotic open-plan corporate offices, and loudly demand their constant, unbroken interaction. This forced, well-intentioned socialization backfires spectacularly. Psychologist Dr. Robert Coplin coined a truly fascinating term for this specific type of modern distress. He calls it a loneliness. A loneliness is the intense psychological frustration, irritability, and deep mental exhaustion a person feels when they simply do not get enough time by themselves. Just as a highly extroverted individual might feel depressed and lethargic when deprived of their friends, a natural solitude seeker feels profound psychological distress and physical fatigue when repeatedly deprived of quiet isolation. It is a literal, tangible biological hunger for silence. When someone looks at you and says they desperately need to be alone for a while, they are not being dismissive, rude, or antisocial. They are clearly articulating a genuine physiological need to prevent their nervous system from completely burning out and shutting down. We have unfairly pathologized the natural desire for quietness for far too long. We look at someone peacefully eating lunch by themselves at a cafe, or spending a beautiful Friday night simply reading a book on their couch, and we instantly assume they are sad and need to be rescued. We project our own deep-seated fear of loneliness directly onto their peaceful, chosen solitude. But as the hard medical data clearly shows, rescuing them from their chosen quiet time is actually doing them a severe biological disservice. You are aggressively ripping them away from their natural state of psychological healing and forcing them into a state of rapid emotional drain. True solitude is an active, deeply empowering choice. It is the deliberate carving out of sacred mental space in a relentlessly noisy, demanding world. The individuals who master this quiet practice do not hate society at all. In fact, by taking the necessary time to carefully recharge their mental batteries, they often bring a much calmer, highly focused, and deeply observant energy back into their day-wise social interactions. So, if chosen solitude effectively builds robust emotional resilience and sharply reduces internal stress, does it also fundamentally change how these individuals process information and create new ideas? Part 3. Why they choose to be alone. The answer to that question lies in the exact chemical fuel nervous system prefers to run on. Picture the human brain as a hybrid vehicle that has two entirely different engines. Extroverts primarily run on dopamine, the fast, thrilling, high-energy reward chemical. They need loud environments, constant chatter, and novel social interactions just to get their engines to start. But people who prefer their own company, built with a significantly lower threshold for dopamine sensitivity. For them, a crowded networking event or a loud party is not exhilarating. It is chemically overwhelming. It floods their system far too fast, causing rapid, uncomfortable overstimulation. Instead of chasing that chaotic dopamine rush, natural solitude seekers shift gears and rely heavily on the long acetylcholine pathway. Acetylcholine is a vastly different neurotransmitter. It is the chemical of deep thinking, calm reflection, and extreme energy conservation. When a person steps away from a noisy dinner table to sit quietly on the porch, they are not being rude or antisocial. They are literally switching their biological engine to its preferred, high-efficiency fuel source. This quiet, chemical shift is exactly what allows them to process the heavy emotional data of the day. And this chemical preference for peace unlocks a massive, undeniable cognitive advantage. A 2017 study conducted by psychologists at the State University of New York at Buffalo discovered a direct, positive link between unsociability, which they define as the deliberate choice to spend time alone, and greatly heightened creativity. When you permanently remove the exhausting pressure of reading body language and managing small talk, the acetylcholine pathway goes into overdrive. Without the constant interruption of other human beings, the brain is finally free to connect distant, abstract dots. It begins to build entirely new worlds, solve complex problems, and generate wild, innovative ideas that simply cannot survive in a noisy room. We need to fundamentally rewrite the societal script about the quiet individuals among us. Preferring solitude is not a psychological defect, a sign of depression, or a lack of social skills. It is a highly evolved, biologically driven strategy for emotional preservation and creative brilliance. The next time you see someone sitting peacefully by themselves, do not pity them. They are exactly where they need to be. If you found this medical insight into the quiet mind fascinating, hit the like button and subscribe to the channel for more deep dives into human psychology. Keep exploring, and remember that sometimes the absolute greatest company ever keep is your own.